Why do we wash feet tonight? We wash feet because that's what Jesus did before he died. That your and my discipleship is a life of feet washing, of service. And as a community, you do this. But tonight we remember why we do it. I look out at our young people who just received their first communion, or are preparing to receive their first communion. And it's important they're here tonight, because one of the things they did in their preparation was to prepare a meal for our brothers and sisters that are homeless. They made that meal for Jesus in a way that is, they are feet washing. And I told them beforehand, their parents that put diapers on them, and when they were too young to bathe themselves, bathed them. That was feet washing. And spouses out there, and even with age that minister to each other, that's feet washing. What we do out there in the local community is feet washing. But we recall tonight that we wash Jesus' feet. And in a real sense tonight, Jesus washes your feet. And so we enter into this. And we don't understand what we do here unless we take up this mystery of feet washing. I'm sure we all may have watched the news and the bridge that collapsed in Baltimore. And I found out that one of my friends, Father Acko Walker, was with these 6 Hispanic workers, people of faith, during this crisis and tragedy. Ordinary people like you and I, taking care of families, working jobs, loving their loved ones. And tonight we remember they lost their life. But we recall this call of service. That in a sense it's the death and resurrection of Jesus, that he gave us a model to follow. That we die to really, what is the big thing, our pride or selfishness, and serve others. But maybe for us, sometimes it's just as difficult to receive the graces of the people that serve us as well. And that's also having our feet washed. You and I may not ever die for our faith, probably. But it's these dying and rising again, of getting up again and again in a life of love and service. And I leave you with this. My friend Bishop Avelio, that I was in El Salvador, the church that Archbishop Romero would have been assassinated in, his transformation was a life of feet washing. As he was out in the villages, seeing the suffering and oppression of his people that was caused by the 16 families, getting to know them, getting to know the injustices and poverty, and hearing their stories impacted him, changed him in such a way that he began to speak words of justice in such a way to stand up for his people. And I told you, his homilies were more popular than football in El Salvador at the time, because he was speaking to the suffering of his people. And so when he was giving his last funeral, his last mass of funeral for his friend Don Sarita, who recorded his homilies on the radio, he knew they were coming after him. and to assassinate him. And so when you walk in the church, his last steps to his death, to the altar, you get a sense of. And then when you walk out, that life that is to come. And so pilgrims come there all over the world, and they walk these steps of Oscar Romero, who was following that journey of discipleship, following Jesus, of the death and resurrection. And I would suggest, even here tonight, as we wash feet and as we eat at this table, we make that journey. And as I was there, Bishop Avila took the chalice and the cup, and he mentioned to us in his homily, he said, Romero could see his face in that cup. And then he looked out at all of us, lay folks and priests and those serving, and he said, that's what we're called to do. We're called to see our face in that chalice or cup as we offer our flesh and blood and life and love and service to one another. About that experience, I wrote a poem about Romero's last Mass and what he saw that day. Romero saw his face that day as he looked into the chalice. It seemed so long since the death of the priest Rutilio, his friend, who gave him the courage to leave the palace. Romero saw his face that day when he looked into the chalice, since he spoke against the repression left him waiting for the bullet shot. He knew the government's malice. Romero saw his face that day when he looked in the chalice. I don't believe in death without resurrection. I offer my life for the Salvadorian people. Romero walked his last steps to look into the chalice. Don Sarita's funeral mass would be his last mass, shot that day before he could look into his chalice, the chalice. His body spilled blood that fell from this chalice to rise in the Salvadorian people. Brothers and sisters, as we wash feet and receive the body and blood, let's see our lives in service in the chalice.